first, I guess we should welcome everyone to the podcast.
Alright. Hello everyone, I am CrashJoer99.
I am MetroidMst.
I am Quietus.
I'm Xavier.
Today we're discussing the contests, post-contest. There were 9 hacks released, and which was actually kind of a lot.
More than I thought there'd be.
Yeah, I think that was more than anyone thought there would be, so...
No, not me. I thought there was going to be 10.
Well, you ruined it.
Although I was being facetious at the time, so...
Anyway, we're going to go through them all sort of relatively fast. We're going to start with the ones that didn't get any votes. And the first one is Equilibrium Soul. How would you describe that hack, Quietus?
It's a fairly small hack with some great new ideas, 1 or 2 bugs here and there, but otherwise it was pretty well polished.
Yeah, there was some very interesting things in there. I really liked the Dark Visor. Of course, I was one of the maybe half the people who played it that actually worked. But it was still a really neat idea. I would like to see that in more hacks.
Yeah, Coat's been doing a lot of ASM work, so it's quite a beefed up little hack.
I had some fun with it initially because I didn't read the notes that came with it, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it on and off.
Whereas I was one of the people who did have bugginess issues and couldn't even get it to actually work the first couple times.
Yeah. I know you spent some time even working in the ROM trying to get it to work, and it's still...
Yeah, I did find out the basis of why I was having such glitchiness problems with it, though. And it turns out that it was because I was running my emulator, which was SNES 9X, from the main drive on my computer, and Windows 7, it's something weird about the permissions and all that kind of stuff, where it just sometimes with certain programs it does weird things. Like I can't run Smile or Smile RF off of the main drive either. So yeah, once I actually played it on a drive that wasn't the main drive with the OS, I had no bugginess issues.
What did you all think of the gravity boost, though? 'Cause I've heard like conflicting ideas about some like it, something it's like kind of pointless.
I liked the idea of it. The only issue I had with it was that it was only with your standard vertical jump. You couldn't do it with the spin jump.
Yeah.
Actually,
So you always had to be standing still, so I felt anyway.
if you
Is
hold
that not the case?
If you hold the aim down button, like when you're just standing, and then you spin jump forward, you would get the boost during the spin jump, which I don't think it was meant to be programmed that way, but it was.
Yeah, what I mean is, you know, when you're just sort of running through a room and you try and do a big jump with the gravity boost, it just didn't kick in. I presume that was intended.
Yeah. Which, to me, it made it feel like some of the stuff was kind of unfinished.
Yeah,
Like he kind of rushed it out without like thorough bug testing and all that good stuff.
But I
well,
guess that's only.
It was only a month long. So.
that and the rest of the hack was like all the level design was nice and actually put some work into the ASM. So
This is true.
The most annoying thing about it for me was the button combinations for both the gravity boost and the Dark Visor seem a little bit strange. And maybe just because I'm used to the original Super Metroid so much, but it's a little strange to try and do new combinations to work these new items. I think that might be a hard thing to get around in general, just because people who are playing these are probably used to Super Metroid. They're used to playing it a certain way, and now you don't have to hold. I use a keyboard, so I'm holding control, pressing all these other buttons, and going, this is weird.
Yeah,
Especially if your key combination ends up being Control Alt and Delete.
Thankfully not. I made sure.
Hello, Task Manager. Probably a better combination for the gravity boost would have been just doing like what Prime 2 did and just have it as sort of a space jump for in water.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be that at first because I had to rush through some of the hacks earlier, and I didn't read the descriptions, so I didn't know what to do. And then I read it, but then I misread it. So I thought it said you had to hold down and then jump.
Oh.
So I was trying that for like 10 minutes, and
Basically just crouch jumping.
yeah, It wasn't working. So eventually I got it though. The key combination is a little bit awkward. It kind of made it also kind of weird with the physics, because I would be rolling off of a ledge with Morph Ball, and then when I'd come out, a lot of times I end up holding angle down, so I just randomly fly up.
You talk of physics as well. It was also interesting in any rooms where there was any water, because you could spin jump and just sail across the room. There was so much acceleration on that.
Does anyone here play on a controller?
Yes.
I do.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, is the button combination a little bit easier, do you think, on that?
Probably, yeah. I've never actually played with a keyboard because, well,
I
can't.
I would say yes, but it was still a little odd because I actually have item cancel on L2. I use PlayStation controller, so for me it was L2 and L1 or R1 to switch it on and off, so it's still a bit awkward, but it was manageable after I read it.
Yeah, because I was just thinking with the original controller, it might have been worked a bit easier with the L button there a bit.
I mean, my L button and my jump button are like a centimeter apart, so it's not really hard, but it was just awkward.
And did anyone else notice that there was boss health meters?
I did.
I noticed that, yeah.
I thought that was a neat little thing in there.
It was a little bit buggy, but it was definitely cool. It was accurate, except when it was dead.
Yeah, because then it just kept the... it doesn't
just
say
kind of
zero.
stayed up there in the
enemy
head.
But still, that's a pretty neat idea. I'd kind of like to see maybe more stuff like that in hacks.
Yeah, the in-game timer and the boss health. I like both of those extra information.
I think it's nice to see things like that because it doesn't really impact gameplay. So probably 9 out of 10 hacks could have a boss health bar and it doesn't affect anything.
I kind of like the way that, GR2 did it. With, instead of just having it on the HUD in the normal place, it was actually in place of the mini-map when you entered the boss room.
That's true, because the mini-maps in boss rooms, or major boss rooms, I believe, is gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think it's also a good tactic to use for any future hacks is to remove the mini-map. I mean, personally, if I'm going to check the map, I just bash the start button anyway, but I'd barely ever look at the mini-map.
Yeah, the mini-map is so small, it doesn't offer too much information.
Yeah.
You're not planning a route based on that.
It's like
especially when you're in
a pink square next to another pink square.
So I get overall, what are your thoughts on the hack? Good, bad, potential, whatever.
It was definitely good. I think it would have had more potential as a bigger hack for some more interesting gameplay. Like the new things that he added in, I thought were really cool. Could have been worked on a little bit more, like gravity boosters. Just a little bit weird, but overall, I wouldn't have voted for it, but it was good.
I think for me it was a nice hack. I like the tiling and everything else, the actual design of the rooms. But I think that perhaps Quote may have been reaching the deadline and pushed things in. It felt a bit like you went to a dead end, you got an item, and all that item did was let you get out of a dead end. Like there was no use for the item but other than getting back.
It was pretty linear for the most part, except for, well, actually, yeah, for just all the little items that you need to progress along this one path. But definitely agree with the other sentiments. Had really good tiling. ASM just kind of seemed like it needed a little extra polish to fix it up here and there. Really good ideas, though. In fact, the gravity boost item inspired me to make my own version, which I haven't even really started on yet.
I think that was one of the nicer things to come out of the competition, though, was it was a nice place for people to exhibit anything they're working on, because I know there were a few people in there just bashed something new in their hack just to get feedback.
I like the hack too. I mean, I think the Dark Visor has a huge potential in a lot of other hacks. It takes a lot of work to do it right because it takes up palette line in the graphics editor, so you're limiting your palettes even more with that, but I think that could be used really well in some future hacks. And I would like, and the boss health thing was nice too, so.
I felt when I used the visor it would have been a great replacement for how the X-ray actually works. Just completely eliminate the scope on the X-ray and just say this is how it's going to work from now on.
And it'd make it so you could actually move.
And in fact, it may actually be a good replacement for that item selection thing in your heads-up display. So you could just switch it on and off that way. So I think we're done with Equilibrium for now. Rulers of Rain, or I always thought it was Rulers of Ruin, but I guess it's Rain.
It is
Rulers of Rain?
I'm sure it's supposed to be ruin, wasn't it? Because it used the ruins tile set from Symphony of the Night.
Yep.
I guess that was the idea.
And that's actually how I would describe it. With it's Castlevania tiles. It's his first hack, and it shows, but it does have some really good things in it, like items and grapple beam. He put grapple beam, which not a lot of people used.
Yeah, it looked all right with the custom tile set. The tiling could have been a little bit better, like the actual room design, and it was kind of weird that there was only a few items, but you got like 800 missiles and 100 supers.
Pulled an ox.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really easy to really straightforward. Not a whole lot to offer. And I actually got a glitch here just a moment ago where I died, and then when I respawned, I was at 0 health, so I immediately died again.
Yeah, that happens in that hack, and even in my hack it happens. Black Falcon told me once why it happened, and I forget what causes it.
I
Alright.
think it has something to do with the SRM. I can't remember exactly, but
Well, something got screwed up. Pretty sure that's not supposed to happen.
no.
One thing to note about this, and I think needs some criticism, is the landing site. Just kind of thrown together. I don't really understand the structure to it. Yeah, it could be better.
One
I
thing
think there were a
go
few
ahead.
things in this hack for me. I mean, just back to the tiling briefly for a second. The thing with the Castlevania tiles for me was that they felt too clean, too bright. You know, with the Super Metroid tiles, they're all kind of dingy, a bit dirty. And these just looked like they were really in your face compared to the standard Metroid tile sets. And the other thing with the tiling for me, which was an error as far as I could see, was there were some of the rooms where he'd used too many shot blocks, and there were only so many of them that you could actually destroy in one hit before they started. You know, you had to wait for some to respawn before you could continue.
Yeah, you hit the TLM limit, which is kind of odd because there's a huge amount of TLMs that the game can process all at once.
Yeah,
you can still hit that.
I think he just had about 40 or 50 odd single shot tiles in one block.
Yeah, he could have really reduced it by doing the like 2x2 and 1x2 combinations, but
I think
Or
we could
just not
probably
use the
chalk
50.
that up to just an average beginner oops.
you know, and one thing for a first hack that I liked a lot, there weren't spikes everywhere.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
one
always a
good thing.
plus.
Like when I was first, like my first room, spikes everywhere. My second room, spikes everywhere. First hack, spikes everywhere. I was first starting out. It seemed everybody who was starting out had that in mind. Make it harder. Oh, put spikes everywhere. That makes it harder.
It's like Super Metroid Impossible all over again.
And so I was glad to see that was not the case.
It really wasn't. It was, if anything, it was too easy. There's a huge variety in difficulties in these hacks, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But there was a secret bonus ending for anybody who discovered that. Phantoon is naturally the final boss. You get power bombs from him, and you can beat it from there. But in the room where you in the game, if you lay a power bomb, the ceiling breaks open, and then Botwoon's back there, and so he's like the optional bonus boss if you want. And I think you're an acid or something where you're fighting something like that. I forget. But after Botwoon, then it's another indoor thing. So this one, I think this is the only one that actually has an optional ending like that. So there's that. I was a little thrown off by like all the different tile sets. It seemed like if you landing sites criteria, rooms immediately to the left and right, they're your Castlevania stuff. Then you get warped in the Crocomyre's room. Then at a time there was Norfair. Then there was other stuff. I was like, this is for a hack that's no bigger than 20 rooms. Or 21, however many. It's kind of all over the place with tiles. And he did fix it up a little bit for his final version. I kind of suggested to him not to bother with Crocomire and Ridley, or Crocomire and Phantoon, because part of them is built into the tile set, and that would be a whole lot to get around for someone just with their first hack. So
I think it's probably just another sign that T.H.E is fairly new to the scene, or seems to be. But you know, we all tinkered with as many tile sets as we could when we started. But I guess for the guy, bonus points for the fact that he's appeared on the scene and produced a hack in the first contest within months of being here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Not a
Props to
whole lot
him.
of people do.
if they do, it's not good at all.
And there's spikes everywhere.
Yeah.
Let's face it, some of us are 10 years in and still struggling.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think one of the downsides to using the Castlevania tile set is that it's kind of inherently limited in how you can use it just because of how Castlevania itself is tiled, which is not the same as how Super Metroid is tiled. So
Yeah, it's things
you will
like
kind of impose your own limits on yourself by using it, but it does also look quite pretty.
Yeah, it's like some of the rooms in there, they've got the giant heads, and they must take about 10, 12 tiles each.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been much happier with it if he had used the giant lion heads.
I will agree. Those heads were, they were all right, but the one room in particular where the room was built out of those giant heads, well, that one was a bit much for me. These are not what you build a room out of.
Yeah, you build a room out of tiles, not heads.
Statue heads.
It's like Inception, there's a lion head in a lion head in a lion head.
Oh god.
We need to go deeper.
What are your final thoughts on Rulers of Ruin?
It's good for a first hack. Definitely good for a first hack. I've seen a lot of worse stuff. And I like what he tried with the tile set. It looks nice, but yeah, kind of all over the place. So it's good, not the best.
Yeah.
I think
Could've
for
been
me, I
better.
can probably summarize in 3 words. It was great first effort.
I agree.
Indeed. Could have been a lot better. Could have been a hell of a lot worse. But
Definitely.
damn good for a new guy who has barely gotten into the hacking scene. So.
Yep, I'm just gonna say, again, I'm glad there weren't spikes everywhere. I was pleasantly surprised in all of them, like, look. I guess the next one on our list is the amazingly named SM Contest from Smile User 96. This might be the most inventive name out of all of them. Anyway, do you want to describe this one, Crash?
Sort of along the vein of Equilibrium, seems like it was made to show off some specific ASM stuff, which it did quite well. The remote bomb puzzle was quite tricky and very good. Although I think it may have been more appropriate to have it for like a non-essential item instead of in the main path. But it was still good.
I think it might be the smallest hack out of them all in terms of room total, but it had the remote bombs, which are very interesting. And I think they were a bit more intuitive to use. I like the button presses for this better than saying Equilibrium, but the puzzle was tricky because you pick up an item with the remote bombs you're not told you have. Unless you look in your inventory, and the ending is the best ending ever.
And for some reason now I can't remember it.
Basically, once you get power bombs, you can break the one wall. You're locked into a room with a missile refill station, and you go to the missile refill station, and a message pops up that says "nuclear warhead detonated," and the game ends.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that, yeah.
So the same was just decided to blow the planet up via missile station.
I think for me, with the ASM in this one, for the remote bombs, I think what worked over those in Equilibrium was the fact that naturally when you're in morphable form, the run button generally isn't used, so it's available to be used to detonate them. And does anybody actually have a clear description of how that puzzle was supposed to be completed?
I think there's really only one way to complete
I
it,
believe so, yeah.
which is part of what made it so tricky.
Because you have to bomb all these blocks, and once you get them all broke, you have to lay your bombs so that you can detonate them later once you're set up, and all those blocks will get broke from that line of remote bombs. Then you have to go around, right after you do that, you have to drop a bomb at this one switch, trigger I guess, get out before the blocks reform, and then you can place your bombs on the other triggers.
Yeah, that was the solution I ended up with. I think the hardest part for me was actually this switch on the left where you just bomb in from somewhere that's unrelated to the whole rest of the puzzle. You know, you backtrack for like half the screen, just bomb a random block.
Entrance to get to it is off screen from the
Yeah, I kind
other
of
switches.
wish that tile beneath, because it looks like an air tile like the other pipes you can travel through, but it's a solid block underneath that one. And I wish he changed that to look like a solid block instead of just the pipe that you've been traveling through.
Instead of the troll block.
Yes. Yeah, in order to actually get out of there, you have to use Spring Ball, which you're not told you've collected.
Yeah, and I can see why people got stuck with it.
That was my biggest issue. I'm like, there is no way to do this with what I have. And then I found out, oh, I have Spring Ball. That makes a difference.
And I think the only reason I didn't have such horrible troubles with it is because I had heard that you actually have Spring Ball before I tried doing the puzzle.
I think the other great thing as well with the remote bombs was the fact that for most people, infinite bomb jump became a non-issue because you could just do it anytime, any place.
And I want to mention, getting the remote bombs, that room was evil.
Yes, it was.
Because there's a gray door and 3 bangs in that room. And you don't actually have to destroy the bangs because that door is fake. It's just a fake door, you can't open it.
So we've moved on from the troll block to the troll door.
Yes.
Pretty much.
I kind of like he did something different, but I mean, you don't have any knowledge of it until after the fact. So afterward, you're like, oh, yeah.
I didn't have to spend so many times and lives trying to kill all those bangs.
I always kind of both love and hate new things like that all the time because I hate it because it's different, but I also like it because it's different. You know, you get so stuck in your way of playing, this is how Metroid was played, therefore this is how hacks are played. And then they mix it up.
Did anyone else get to the... Well, I know Crash did, but the boss in there... And speaking of bosses, I just want to say, all these hacks have a different enemy boss. Which was
very surprising.
Yes, and also, it was very nice and very surprising. The boss for this one was Bomb Trizo. His room was sort of evil, because if you did not defeat him fast enough, you were going to die, because acid is rising up in that room. So you're kind of in a time limit without actually being told you're in a time limit. The room's just shaking. You can't see anything for a little while. When you see acid, if you haven't defeated him, you're not going to make it.
I think it's not a bad idea for a boss room, because if you see that the acid is rising, the pressure's there.
Yeah.
But actually leaking it into the room then becomes the opposite, and it just becomes a bit stupid.
Kind of like the Super Zero Mission Spore Spawn fight. I mean, this one wasn't as bad as that, but... Speaking of random tile set changes, I think there were only 2 rooms in this hack that had the same tile set right next to each other. It went from terrain to old broken criteria to rocky criteria, and then palm trees was in a meridian room for some reason. And then there was a Brinstar room where remote bombs are. This one was all over the place with tiles too.
You know, I never actually noticed that.
Something.
For some reason, in my head, it actually worked. I don't know.
Maybe it's because you're used to all the tiles. They weren't new tiles or something, so I don't know. It's just stuff like that kind of puts me off. Like in a small hack, it's like you can very easily get away with one tile set here. Why are you using all this other stuff? I guess, does anyone else have anything else to add about the hack before we get into the final thoughts?
Not that I can think of. I seem to recall there was a random energy tank stuck in a wall above one of the puzzles, but...
Yes, there was. So, yeah, I guess that's your final thoughts on the SM contest. The hack.
I think it was fairly straightforward. Again, it was a good opportunity to exhibit the ASM, which, from what I could see, worked as intended.
Just a short little thing. Level design wasn't flawless, I'll say that. All the tile sets that it kind of just switched between. I noticed it a little bit, but it wasn't horrible, I guess.
Pretty much agree with what Quietus said. Good little showcase for some interesting ASM.
I think it had the best ending of all of them.
There's the ingenuity there.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to the next one, which is everybody's favorite. A So Little Room, which I made.
God, why?
Why don't you describe it, Quietus?
So Little Room is a small hack that I didn't finish, where you are enclosed in a space which is not big, with a shack tool and 1 or 2 rinkers.
In Tetris music.
That was the best part.
I have nightmares now of Rinkas playing Tetris music flying out of the walls.
Gosh.
I don't know, I was talking with Crash sort of before or during making this, and there were a lot worse ideas thrown around between us.
Which thankfully he did not implement.
I thought this was going to be bad enough, and unfortunately it didn't come out quite as bad as I wanted it to, but a lot of people didn't finish it because it was that bad.
I did actually escape the room a fair few times, but I just got stuck in the infinite room and quit.
I think I said this earlier, but D-Man, I believe, was wandering around in that for around 4 hours, I believe, and never found the exit. So I was like, oh, well, that kind of worked like intended to.
I think what would have polished this entire hack off for me is because of the Tetris music and spending all that time in that one room. When you finally killed that Shaktal, he should have died with the Tetris sound. like you finally won, you can leave the room.
I did not actually even think of that.
So what was the actual solution for the room with the doors?
There was no pattern path.
No.
There's an exploit you can do, but basically down left. 'Cause it ends on the left door, and the only way into the room with the exit door is down. So if you keep going down left, you'll get it eventually. And if not, you go through like the right door once, and then you'll catch it the next path.
Okay.
Nice little exploit that I found only because MST told me the door's on the left side. So
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be that easy after that, but it's like it was a small oversight on my part.
I just assumed it was some combination like in the Zelda games, up, right, down, right, or something.
I thought about using the Konami code, but that didn't really turn out so.
So with the Konami code, you'd have had up, up, down, down, left, right, rage quit.
no, save the rage quits for low impact.
So yeah, there really isn't anything to this hack. It's just bubbles and shackles.
Rainbow bubbles.
That's true, rainbow bubbles.
Oh yeah, I must admit,
Very
in fairness, on the plus side, you did give a perfectly legit seizure warning.
Yes.
I kind of had to with this one.
I was in the door labyrinth for about half an hour and was literally starting to get a migraine from it. So yeah, seizure warning for that, totally legit.
I guess final thoughts on it.
Painful.
If I'm honest, when I played it, I wasn't sure whether there was actually going to be a point, or whether it was just a deliberate troll.
Yeah, pretty sure it's just a deliberate troll, which is why my only thoughts are, dear God, why?
Yeah, don't do drugs, kids. The next hack was Visman's Sidehopper Special, by Visman, of all people. I guess to describe this hack, I would say pull the Sidehoppers, and he uses Green Burn Star really well, and it's actually one of the better, well, maybe one of the only, like, explorational hacks in here. All the others were, like, quickly to the point, you have to go here. This one, you actually had to go look around a little bit and collect a bunch of stuff in order to survive, so...
Yeah, I think for me, apart from Melancholia, which we'll get to later, I think for me this was probably one of the best tiled hacks of the contest.
Oh yeah, very lush green Brinstar.
I would say there's a lot of tile sets I have very hard time working with, and so I don't use them, and Green Brinstar is one of them. I've never liked working with that tile set, but he pulls it off very well. I actually like how it looks.
Yeah, uses fog in a lot of the rooms too.
Almost every room.
It gives a nice
Right.
purple and green thing.
Sidehoppers love their misty, foggy rooms, I guess.
I think it was quite nice as well that he stuck to the formula of when you get a new upgrade, you need to use the upgrade. I remember being stuck in the Green Star bit for a little while before remembering that I just picked up the charge beam, so I could now kill the spiky, crawly, roundy things. It's their official name. What is it, the Gamer?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe people usually call them either gamers or zoomers.
Or spiky, crawly, roundy things.
Or that.
I think that's just Quietus.
I'm going to petition Justice for a rename and smile.
That'll work wonders. He should rename everything that.
Yeah, I think for the tiling and exploration, he took a lot of cues from vanilla Super Metroid. Like, I didn't see anything that was really, I guess, new about the tiling and stuff, but it was really well done, like, in this pretty much the exact same style as the original, which is not something you see in many hacks at all.
Including giving sensible hints for most of the items that were hidden.
Indeed.
Oh yeah.
Probably be best described as a really good vanilla tiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Which there is nothing wrong with that.
I think if I were to pick a fault in it, apart from the obvious one, which we'll probably get to in a minute, it would be that there were instances of badly positioned enemies. I know there was a part quite early on where you had to just wall jump a couple of times up a shaft, and there was one of the scree things right at the top that just slammed you every time.
There was one interesting bug in it too. There was one room where if you paused the game and then unpaused it, the side hoppers, or all the enemies in that room, would actually change palette. It was really weird. It doesn't affect anything, it's just if you happen to pause and then unpause, these enemies will suddenly be very orange. Go ahead and mention the real problem with it.
The biggest problem people found with this was that it needed to be renamed from Visman's Sidehopper Special to simply Visman's Special, because it would have been improved had the Sidehoppers simply been removed. But in seriousness, the Sidehoppers were okay, but I think most people, as they got further into it, just felt that it was overkill.
Yeah, it kind of was. And it's kind of a problem when you run out of ammo too. I kept running out of ammo.
Yeah, there were some instances where I had to just camp and spam 20-25 beam shots at one of the bigger Sidehoppers due to no missiles again.
Yeah, I just kind of pinned them in a corner somewhere and sat there firing.
Use the terrain to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that's normally how I generally don't use my missiles and supers anyway, except on bosses. So I'm kind of used to just sitting around in a safe spot shooting at enemies. I didn't really have an issue or problem with it, but I also don't really use ammo. So I know that, like, as early patch, you could get stuck if you ran out of ammo in a room. So I know that was an issue for some people. And I want to mention, this was the only hack that had Ridley as the final boss, and I was expecting almost every hack to have Ridley as the final boss.
Yeah, it was too. Interesting ideas with the final bosses. And when there's not a billion Ridleys, it makes this one seem more original too, so it's good for everyone.
So yeah, any final thoughts on this hack?
Green and purple.
I think my overall thoughts with the hack were that it was really, really well done, again, because Visma was fairly new on the scene, but this is a guy who seems to have appeared, taking on loads of critique, compliments, comments, and everything else, and just run with them. And he's produced this hack in a relatively short time, and most people, including ourselves, agree that it's pretty good.
Yeah, he definitely did pretty well. I sometimes, like, when I played this, I kind of forgot how new he was, because it seemed like it was just really someone who's experienced with
Really well polished,
yeah, level editing.
I'm noticing a theme here where in the final thoughts I'm agreeing quite a lot with Quietus and Xavier.
I'm gonna call you out first next time. There actually, I want to mention this. There actually was a story with this hack, and I was confused about the ending. You beat Ridley. There's the broken Metroid container in the last room. You walk toward it as the game ends. I kind of like
got tetanus from the cut on the glass.
I think it was actually from the Metroids fueling the planet or something like that. And since the Metroid wasn't there, the planet didn't have any more fuel, so it exploded. It was something like that.
Well, that's
it was something like that. So yeah, I like ridiculous things like that. So that was interesting.
I think most of the people in the competition actually put a story, just quickly chucked something in at the end.
But yeah, there was definitely a really good hack in it. I know he's working on another hack now, so looking forward to that. And so that brings us to, there were 4 hacks who received votes.
Wow, really?
The lowest one was a hack from, I want to say Chris, that's how I always said it, but it's probably Cries. Some of you may know that was Green Kirby. He made Ice Metal uninstall. This was Save Room Darkness Returns. Do you want to describe this one, Xavier?
It's kind of like where you start out in the game and it goes along, and then you reach a certain point, and then you come back and everything is kind of dark. The darkness is returned. And that's pretty much all there is.
And
to this
creepy.
hack.
It won my vote because it turned out to be a lot different than I was expecting. Because I was expecting it to be, Save Room was in the title, and Kirby had said something about using the save loading thing, so you have to save, so reset and then load in the new spot. And so I thought it was just going to be a maze of that, having to save, reset, load, which was going to be a disaster for me recording it. And so I was not looking forward to it. And it turns out that was not the case at all, and it was actually really, really interesting. It's the first hack to use, I believe it's publicly released, but the Excel charge, where
Oh yeah.
I believe it's publicly released, so it's the first hack I've seen use that.
I believe it was made by Jam, right?
I think so. I think that sounds right.
Excel charge.
I think that was actually one of my gripes with this, is that I liked the idea of the Excel charge, but I felt that even with the handful that I collected, the charge was still too slow.
So slow. I hated that.
Yeah, I think once you got the second Excel charge, it went to normal charging rate.
I still think it was a little slower at that point, actually.
Really?
I think so.
Maybe.
Perhaps it would have been better to have scaled it the other way, standard charge when you start, and it speeds up by, so you actually get a bonus for going and exploring.
It is still a bonus in relative to the original speed, but the original speed is so crippling. It's not very fun to use. And it's also kind of weird with the animation because it looks like you're charged, but then you just fire a normal shot.
And I felt I'd collected all the Excel charges, and I guess I missed one or two of them, I was told. So I'm assuming it gets to a point where it is faster charging than the original at some point, but you actually have to go back and forth collecting them.
How many were there in total?
There might have been 6.
I think I only got about 3.
I only got 2.
got 2.
But I think when I was playing this, I found that the basic tiling of all the rooms showed that Chris had plenty of experience and knew what he was doing. But for me, the only thing I didn't like about the tiling was that when you came back and everything was dark, the red kind of squiggly tiles, whatever they were over absolutely everything. I think you could have made it look a bit better, but leaving a few bits where you could still see the original scenery.
Yeah. The blood web, whatever it is.
And the other thing I would say about this hack is that I broke it. I was playing through and I got the speed booster, and then I went into Teresa's room and he was taking forever to die, and I bombed the wall on the right and realized it was speed booster blocks. So I then took damage from him and then short charged through the wall and ran out, turned tail and fled.
That's not actually a bad idea. Personally, I had 2 big issues with the hack. One was, like, when you're in Gold Teresa, you're not supposed to have had... You can collect Speed Booster beforehand, but you're not really supposed to have it, because you get Spring Ball down there, and then you're supposed to take that back up to get Speed Booster. So, if you don't have Speed Booster and you go down there, you have to go back up. I was not aware, but there's a block that is enemy breakable. So, and that thought never crossed my mind, so I'm like, how is the player supposed to get all this? And I know one other player actually quit at that point because I didn't think there was a way out. So I think should probably have been a bomb block. It'd just be easier to find for the player instead of, hey, there's a gamer that ran into it and it's broke. So there was that part, and the major issue I had with it is it used red criteria. I'm sorry, but no one should ever use red criteria.
I agree with the darkness, whatever, being kind of everywhere. It didn't look the greatest. It was just thrown on everything. A little bit lazy. Like, I think there could have been some more tile variation there, because a lot of them were like the same thing, and then there was just those eyes.
I guess you could compare that pretty well to Echoes, where the light world you had these different areas, but in the dark world everything kind of looked the same, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of flat, dark rock, and...
That's kind of how it came across.
Although I did like the creepy eyes everywhere.
Yeah.
And
I
Zeke
thought I
actually
saw...
mentioned something that would have made it even better, which is using like animated tiles or little enemies to make the eyes follow you.
Yeah.
So that they're just looking around.
Like Dragon's actual eyes, yeah.
I actually, I thought I saw that a few times. I was seeing things, but actually made the areas a little bit creepy. Like the tiles, I kind of gave it a creepy look. That might have been just me being mentally insane.
Yeah. What could also be quite creepy in rooms like that with things like those eyes would be to have different states of a room.
Yes.
Different versions of the same room, so that you come in one door, for example, and you run out the other side. But if you come back the same way, the eyes have moved and kind of followed you towards the door.
That would be
brilliant.
Be good use of.
Hell yeah, that would definitely add to the creepy factor.
I mean, it's not noticeable at first, which is another good thing to add to the creepiness. Like, because when you notice something, finally, it's like, oh, yeah. How long have those eyes been following me?
I guess I should say that it was probably the best Force Spawn death ever, too.
Yeah. Technicolor dying Spore Spawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you defeat him, he goes all hyper beam on you. It's like, what in the world?
I think the only problem that I actually had with it was I know that the save rooms themselves were broken, which is why I never actually tried saving. I just used saved states. But the Dragon fight, for me, I ended up having to use save state abuse because you couldn't kill the turrets, which I always kill the turrets. So maybe it's just my fault, and I'm not used to fighting Dragon with the turrets intact.
I think that would apply for most people, though. I think it's just part of the Dragon fight. The first thing you do is destroy the turrets, and not being able to. It's like I think it was the same in Impossible. They were grapple blocked off.
I love what he did with the sounds, though, for Dragon. His death sounds were fucking amazing.
Final thoughts on Save Room Darkness Returns?
Nice hack. Ideas that could have been taken a bit further, or perhaps implemented a little better. But overall, it's pretty good.
what Quietus said about the idea being taken further. That's definitely true. If it was a larger hack and the idea was used to have some other kind of novel changes in gameplay, then it could really be used well. But for such a short hack, can't really do that. So it has some good ideas, and level design was alright, and overall it was okay, pretty good. Seemed a little bit rushed though.
Well, to be fair, he did make it in a week and a half. To go along with all the other stuff, yeah, the blood mesh in the Dark World could have been done a little bit better. The creepy factor could have definitely been amped up with some of the things that we mentioned. Really, aside from a few of the little broken quirks like the save rooms or the bomb blocks, or enemy breakable blocks, which I actually did not have a problem with. 'Cause, I don't know, maybe I've just played so many hacks in the past that I figure if I shoot it and it doesn't break, then I try bombing it, and if it still doesn't break, find an enemy. That might just be me.
I obviously liked it a whole lot. It was biggest surprise to me, and I'm just glad it didn't come out how I expected it. Although, still used red criteria, so I'm still slightly upset about that.
-1 red criteria.
So, on to the next hack, which is everybody's favorite. This was Low Impact by Daltone. And why don't you describe this one, Crash?
Yeah.
Do you really want me to?
Why not?
It's a challenge hack, but it has the fall damage, which basically, after you fall a certain distance, makes everything into instant death spikes, which is a really, really bad idea for people who are not good at challenge hacks. It needed a lot of balancing between the challenge factor and the fall damage, and that was the biggest thing that made me rage quit about the whole thing.
I think for me, my biggest feeling with this hack was disappointment, and it wasn't with the hack itself, it was the fact that I wouldn't see much of it because the full damage put me off.
Yeah.
Like I would have gone further in the hack, I would have seen more of the hack because it actually looked pretty good. It was well tiled, palettes were vivid and different, the rooms themselves looked reasonably well built, but I just knew I wouldn't see much of it because of the fall damage.
I can sympathize with that. I did also like the tiling and such. There was a few things with a few quirks with the fall damage that I ended up abusing though, because just to get around, like I said before, where you can smooth morph and just negate the damage. And there's also a few quirks that make it more painful, unfortunately. Where if you run off a ledge and then turn around right at the last second, immediately start falling at like 800 miles an hour. You could fall a tile and die.
That's the end of Samus.
I think for me as well, I did mention this earlier before we started recording, but for me it wasn't even so much the full damage itself, it was just getting frustrated with the constant knockback animation every time you landed on the floor that actually made me stop playing.
I found myself actually aiming for spikes or enemies more often because I didn't want to have to take damage from the instant death floor.
Yeah, that is one of the quirks. There's the floor, if you land on that, it'll kill you. Land on spikes or enemy, you're okay. You still take damage, but you're not gonna die. And I believe both me and Crash had this issue where it looked like some spots, and some of the rooms it looked like there were ledges, but they're really just part of the background. So we just kind of fell through and died.
And I absolutely hate that when people do it in hacks. It's like improper use of tiling.
Foreground and background are two completely separate things.
Yes. And they should stay visually separate.
Those weird blue Brinstar tiles, or the blue-pink Brinstar tiles, threw me off in that room. It's like, oh,
there's a ledge.
There.
Yeah, I can land on that. Oh, nope. Falling to my death now.
I think most of the problems with this hack could have just been alleviated by reducing the full damage. Just one simple change would have probably made a lot more people play it and enjoy it.
I agree there.
And just to mention something about the fall damage, it's from what I believe you can do a full jump and not take damage, but about at a jump and a half, you start taking damage, and by start I mean about 89 damage. So you're left with 10 at that point.
No.
So you don't have room to really play with. Like even dropping down into little pits where it's kind of scary, even though you're pretty sure there's a ledge there. If there isn't, you're going to die.
And if you don't have good wall jumping skills, you will not make it very far at all,
You won't get out the first room.
as evidenced by my playthrough.
About the fall damage, where if you just fall a few tiles when it starts, it actually does start at 1 damage, but that's a very specific number of
That's a
pixels.
very specific sub-pixel somewhere.
Yeah. I've gotten 5 before, and I've gotten like 10, but after that it just immediately goes to like 100 or something. So
And it's literally just a couple pixels between completely eradicating your energy, or just a little bit.
yeah.
So there's no breathing room.
I just have images of Samus falling like 16 or 18 tiles and being fine, and 20 tiles just turns her to soup inside her soup. Mush.
I wonder if it's like an accelerated change, so that eventually, once you get to the 100 damage falls, maybe like 1 out of 65,000 of a pixel later.
I think I was the only one here who actually beat the hack. Actually, kind of disappointed about some things, because I thought it was setting some stuff up, because there's a statue room that just has a Kraid statue in there, and so I thought, well, maybe used, I believe it was DC's statue room thing or whatever. So I thought he changed it so you just had to defeat Kraid, then you could go through the statue room. That's not the case. It's literally you just power on the floor, and Kraid is the final boss though. But I was still a little bit disappointed because I thought he actually did that, so that would have been neat to see, but that didn't happen. And I also at one point thought he might have used, I believe, Metaquarius's reverse Kraid patch, because it looked like the only way I'd get to Kraid is from right headed to left. So I was like, oh, well, maybe he did a couple different things here, but no, it was not like that.
Hack is mostly focused around the death,
Yes.
so.
And you got a wonderful message every time you do it.
Yeah, which is just pouring salt on Samus's already bloody wounds.
Do we have any final thoughts about low impact?
Yeah, basically low impact. If you have really good Super Metroid skills, really good wall jumping skills, and enjoy challenge hacks, give it a playthrough. Otherwise, don't touch it.
If you're not really good at wall jumping, don't even touch it.
And for me, as I say, it was just a bit disappointing, because I'd like to have seen more of the hack. The tiling and everything else looked pretty good. Would like to go further in it, but it put me off.
I'd say for a challenge hack, it's actually a bit different. If you like challenge hacks, at least look into it and try it out, because for a challenge hack, it is pretty interesting. It manages to be really difficult, but in a different way than normal. But otherwise, don't even touch it. So that brings us to the second to last hack, which is B2TW by Grime. And why don't you describe this one, Quietus?
The key feature in this is that you are locked in morph ball form from the outset, and each of the room is semi-puzzle based around that. The idea being you negotiate each room in morph ball form via the upgrades.
I wanted to mention the save rooms work. They're little squat save stations that you save in morph ball form and load you in morph ball form. That was actually really cool.
Definitely interesting to see a morph ball save station. And I just thought of something that could have made it even more interesting. The morph ball doors that...
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Sadfish, I think.
Yeah, Sadie released it with some... I think somebody else drew the doors for her, and she did all the ASM stuff for him.
Yeah.
I can't remember who drew the doors, actually, but...
Sadie Grime morph doors. I presume it was Grime.
Yeah. Damn it, Grime!
You didn't even use them.
They would have been perfect for that.
I would say this is also kind of a challenge hack, but not nearly low impact.
It's very reminiscent of his Halloween hack.
Very much so.
Yeah, I'd say it was more of a puzzle hack than a challenge hack.
Yeah, it was definitely not a challenge hack. I'm terrible at those, and I beat it in 10 minutes, so nice and short, and very gray, I'll say that.
Trying everywhere.
And lots of Zelda stuff everywhere.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest draws for me, was just the chuckling to myself as I played every time I saw one of the ridiculous tongues, different sizes. And on top of that as well, it was just nice to play something completely different. You just wouldn't expect to load any hack up and see this.
There was a lot of little things in there that I liked too. I mean, there was obviously the custom blocks or whatever that would appear, disappear, move around. But he also did some little subtle changes with the fog. Like depending on what room you're in, they'll be going different directions and speed in that room, and little stuff like that I like. So it shows like a lot of attention to detail that you don't always see. You don't normally see that much attention to that kind of thing. So that was one of the things I liked about it.
I think another thing that was in there as well that quite a few people missed was actually the healing blocks.
Yeah, there were some very pink pipes that healed you.
So
Thankfully, somebody pointed those out to me. Because otherwise I wouldn't have noticed.
And I was curious as well, there was I think it was a third room maybe, where there were loads of small blue platforms, and you were going to the right, and I didn't know whether there was an intended solution for that, but to me it was just 2 ridiculously long bomb jumps with the horizontal momentum, and that was it, the room was done.
Yeah, that was what I did.
Horizontal bomb jumps were insanely useful in this hack.
I really liked that. Something that you don't really use in many hacks is the horizontal bomb jumps. They're just kind of there, but in this one it was like, wow, just flew across pretty much half the room in one bomb.
Yeah.
I think that was the last room as well before the cakewalk boss.
Why is it the cakewalk boss?
I think probably 9 out of 10 people that actually played that boss found the exploit in the end and realized it was impossible without it until the fix.
What was the exploit anyway? The original one?
If you just moved close to the spike blocks, the enemies would come down and wouldn't ever be able to hit you. You could just spam the bomb button.
Yeah,
Yeah,
their hitbox
would
was
get
stuck
on
Yeah,
on the spikes.
and you could just sit underneath them. And this is because he had it so you could hold down so bombs don't shoot you up, which was used in some puzzles earlier, but here became a completely cheap way of destroying Let Us Leave boss.
And the only way to actually beat it in the original version.
Pretty much.
Well,
In the original, they had a ton of health.
Yeah, they had too much health. I think
How
I killed one.
how much health did they originally have then?
I would say it would be more than all 3 combined in the latest version for each one. That's what it felt like anyway.
Yeah, it's
they-
a completely ridiculous amount of health.
I'm pretty sure they
Each
probably
stage
took
took at least
50
about-
bombs.
Yeah, I remember jumping all over the place, laying bombs.
Although I suppose if you're good enough, you can exploit their AI without actually getting them stuck on the spikes.
I think the problem with it was, while you were concentrating on fighting one of them, and you could have avoided that one and actually beat it, you try doing that and the second one just mullers you anyway.
We'll say very creative final boss though. Not
Yeah.
expecting Let Us Leave.
Rios.
How many energy tanks were in that hack anyway?
I don't think there was anything hidden, so whatever you see is all there was. I forget what there was, 3 or 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, I think I remember about 3.
I got 5.
There must be 5.
I wasn't expecting to get all the items. I just didn't really hide them, I guess.
I think the only one that was actually kind of tricky to get was the
speed
one
boost
right
one?
after you get speed boost.
The room before the boss, did anyone actually do that? Hopping across those disappearing and reappearing platforms?
Yes.
That I did not do because it's like, it seemed a bit much to actually be able to pull that off when I could get across the whole room with a horizontal bomb jump and there's a healing pipe at the end.
I think if they'd have appeared for longer, more people probably would have, but otherwise it just came down to a perfect timing issue.
I didn't find it perfect at all. It was actually probably at least a second extra time that I had. So I don't know what you guys are on about.
A second.
Yeah, personally, I just took the shortcut of horizontal bomb jumping across.
Yeah.
For some reason that didn't pop into my head in that room, but it popped in my head earlier.
The only other bug I'd mention with this as well, I know it was fixed later, but when I first played it, I actually got the demorph glitch.
Yeah.
When I collected the first item, so I was perma-stuck in the first room, and it took me about 10 minutes to realize that I don't think this is supposed to happen.
And if you do keep getting that, there is a way around it to keep that from actually happening again. And basically, once you pick up the item, if you go to your equipment screen before you push any other buttons, and you turn spring ball on and off, or off and then on again, it'll reset the item bits, so to speak, so that way when you exit the pause screen again, you can actually push jump and not demorph. I'm not sure exactly why that particular glitch happens, but
There's the fix.
it's kind of a, if you happen to run into it, this is what you can do to avoid it again.
Do we have any final thoughts about B2TW?
For me, actually, I'd say I loved it, but it just wasn't my favorite of them all. And that's the only reason I didn't vote for it.
I would say it was probably my favorite. In fact, I just liked the novelty of the whole gameplay aspect, and it's kind of nice just rolling around in Morph Ball. It felt like a different game.
Be interesting to see if somebody could take the concept and run with it and make a sequence of really long rooms and Mario-esque levels where you're in Morph Ball form and you have to, jump the enemies or jump on them or something.
I'd love to see that.
Actually, that's something that was not in there, was platform enemies. Well, I guess you did have a few here and there, but they could have gone a lot different, like a lot farther with them, done some more interesting stuff. I think as it is, it's actually a really fun kind of action puzzle, I guess you could call it, action puzzle game. Had its few slight issues here and there, like the end boss and the little stand-up glitch, but...
I guess I was just really pleasantly happy with the final boss. It's very unique, and probably the most unexpected final boss out of them all.
I think I'd agree, because I suppose if you were moving away from the idea of actually using a boss or a mini-boss, everyone would have automatically picked the bigger enemies, and in this it's just like this poxy flying lettuce stroke Rio thing.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to come across that.
Yeah, I think the only hack that had like a regular enemy as a boss was Equilibrium. Yeah, the blue side hopper. So it's definitely never seen Rio's used as a final boss before.
And they actually worked really well for... I mean, they were insanely difficult in the first patch, but they worked really well for the Morph Ball, being stuck in it and having to fight them that way. It was definitely really different, and so that really helped it.
Yeah, because you kind of had to get them to come to you, try to fight them that way.
The two mechanics between them and the Morph Ball worked really well, I think.
I think as well it was interesting with the boss because you'd been forced into morph form for the whole hack, so when you got to the boss there was no doubt or anything about what you needed to do. It was instantly, right, I gotta bomb these guys.
Which is kind of counterintuitive, because normally when you run into them, like in the regular game or in a hack, your first instinct is to aim up and shoot.
Yeah.
So I guess that leaves the one hack left, which ended up winning the competition. This was Melancholia 4 by Full of Fail. The way to describe this hack, it would be huge for 20 rooms.
Oh, yes.
And this
Definitely.
took 20 rooms and pretty much made every single one as big as they could be. It felt like it took up the minimap. These 20 rooms could have made a submap in a hack. That's how big it was. So yeah, what did you all think of this hack?
Well,
I actually voted for this one as the winner. I loved it. I thought that for the fact that it didn't do anything superbly well. It just did the stuff it did in a very polished way. Like it was really linear, but you didn't always feel like you were just running through one door, in and out, in and out, in and out. And the flow kept on, and the constant collection of items was always satisfying. But overall, I think for me, I felt that it was a hack that didn't feel like it was constrained to a competition of however many weeks it was we had to finish this in. And if it had just popped up and there was no competition, we still would have appreciated it.
if you can make a full hack, or not a full hack, but if you can make a hack that could stand on its own within 30 days, it's pretty impressive.
I absolutely loved the aesthetic touches that were all over in this thing, because like the little conglomeration shadow enemies.
Yes.
Like the kind of caterpillar looking thing in the pipe in the green Brinstar room. And I missed it at first, but I caught it when I was reviewing my playthrough footage. The longfish.
Yes.
Shadow.
I believe, and there was the Ripper at the beginning, the landing site. It was one of them, and the dragon nearby.
Yeah, the dancing dragon.
Again, stuff like that was really cool to come across. I mean, they don't do anything, you can't do anything to them, but like with the one in the tunnel was probably the best one, and it was just neat to see. It made it look like, oh hey, there's actually stuff living here.
There's wildlife.
If you wanted to have a wild imagination, you have stuff to work with. And speaking of that room with the caterpillar thing in that tunnel, that was really well built because it had the rain in it, but because of his tiling and his layering, the rain would only appear in some parts because all these tiles in one section were layer 1, so you didn't see any rain. You would go, quote-unquote, outside into the green Brinstar stuff, and then rain's everywhere. That was very nice tiling.
I also like the inclusion of Black Brinstar, which you very rarely see.
Which is kind of surprising. People use red criteria, but they don't use the better.
I think another thing I liked about this hack was that as you were going through and you saw super missile blocks or power bomb blocks or anything else blocked off that you knew you had to come back for later, you could backtrack, but as you got towards the end before you headed into Torian, there was an obvious track which took you right back to the start, so you could just do a second cycle. So you never really had to backtrack, you could kind of go around in a big circle and come back to where you were.
Yeah. And all the items that you collected would open up shortcuts through the rooms, which I thought was really good.
I have to say, there were some issues to me with this hack. This, based on more what I prefer in a hack, is that this hack was the biggest one, had the potential to have like the most exploration. Like going, I have this, now I can go back here and get this, and that really wasn't the case. It's like the only part where you had to leave a room to collect the item you needed was with Wave Beam.
And it was right in the next room.
That was in the next room. I was a little bit disappointed with that because I was expecting to go look around a bit more, having to backtrack. Maybe there's a shortcut to it or whatever, but I was still expecting a bit more. It's like, oh, you need this item now. Here it is. It's like with Space Jump. You needed it in that room. Here, it's right here. Just walk to the end of this little pit. No, you have Space Jump to get up there. And I was like, I mean, it's fun collecting items. This hack easily had the most items. But I wish there was a bit more backtracking, I guess. A bit more exploration instead of just... Because it's like the first time you go through, you've got everything you need.
Funny thing about that is that even though there was the wave beam, which was kind of like that, I didn't even experience that because I actually sequence broke
You
and skipped wave beam entirely.
Yeah, but I don't think many people would be doing that. I mean, especially not because the hack isn't that difficult. You're not really afraid of going into this room over here. You're not afraid some monster's going to destroy you.
And it's definitely not like low impact where you're afraid of even falling for 5 tiles.
The nice thing was the refill station refilled everything. Your missiles, supers, and power bombs. So if you were ever low on any of them, you could just go there and get it.
I almost didn't notice that, but at one point I just saw my power bombs shoot up, and I was like, hey, when did that happen?
I thought it was pretty interesting how there is 100% item completion, even though none of the pickups were touched at all.
Yeah.
So you like literally have to go around and find, well, if you want 100%, you will have to find every single expansion. So if you like finding items...
I remember some of the rooms where you'd walk in and you'd find a shop block with an item in, and in other hacks you would think, great, I found that item, now I can go, move on. Whereas in this one, you're just like, no, I'm going to turn around now and shoot that block, and then that block, and then that block.
Yeah.
And there was one quite earlier in Brinstar as well. It was like that with all the hanging plants.
Yes.
There was
Oh my god.
one room.
The item garden.
That was ridiculous. I didn't know where super missiles were because I hadn't shot those, so I didn't know where to go. And then I was just like, because I found one of the items that was in the balls, and I was like, let me just shoot the rest of this. 3 more items. Oh. Well then. And I kind of realized after that point that I was going to be getting a lot of items this hack. And I just ended up shooting items that were hidden in the scenery by accident because I had wave beam.
It had a very 13 for items feel to it, and that there's items everywhere. So I liked that part. But bunch of items everywhere. Collecting them, that's always fun.
Did it have the item collect sound hack thing?
Yeah, it changed that so you didn't hear the fanfare every time.
Okay.
Right.
I couldn't remember if it did or not.
Which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. If you're collecting that many items that fast, it's pretty essential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you spend pretty much half the entire hack just listening to that one jingle.
And that's a good thing to do with hacks in general, I believe, because a lot of the people who are playing hacks anyway have probably heard that thing over and over and over again. So,
to the millionth time, it kind of gets annoying. So for everyone out there listening and making hacks, it's pretty much standard issue now.
I think it's not so much a problem having the fanfare, it's just that it's so long.
7 seconds long or something.
Yeah, and it's like the last note when it's just going, duh, it feels like forever.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I always liked about Metroid 2. Like when you collect missiles, just this little quick, and then we're off again.
Many final thoughts on Melancholia? Melancholia 4, I guess.
Well, not even a final thought here, but I found a permastuck in,
Oh, yes.
in the Golden Teresa room. There's a slope that pushes you down, and so you can't get out. and it's like the slope, and then right below it is air, and then right below that is a solid tile. But I somehow got pushed through the solid tile that was two blocks down, and so I fell through and then went out of bounds. And there's acid in the bottom of the room, so I died.
And for me, final thoughts, I think it was a great hack, surprisingly huge, and a worthy winner, I guess.
I would say I didn't vote for it, but I'm not disappointed it won.
Yeah, it was very fun, very big. I liked exploring around, even though it was linear. I did like the searching for items aspect, and I didn't even find half of them. It turned out. Thought I had found a good percentage of them, but apparently there's like
a lot of the rooms had little alcoves and nooks and things with items tucked away.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of area variation as well. There was like a Meridia, a Brinstar, a Criteria, so I liked that about it. Very fleshed out.
And they seem to flow well together in this hack, the different areas.
Yeah, they didn't like just kind of clash like in some of the other ones. So.
Even the Norfairish kind of area with the Metroids that shoot Rinkas at you. Which was very strange, but...
It had bubbles, so it's alright.
Yeah. I think what probably pushed it to the top of the list for me was the combination of the sheer size and the superb aesthetics in it. I just cannot rave enough about just how amazing some of the stuff in it looked.
Right, so, I mean, that was all the hacks in the contest. What did you think of the contest overall?
Generally speaking, very, very pleased with the entries. I think if we'd have even had half the number we got, it would have been a successful competition compared to some we've had in the past, where there seems to be very little interest. And if in the future competitions, again, get even half this number, they'll be worthwhile.
Yeah, I was satisfied with the number of hacks that came out, and also the content of the hacks. Very, very successful.
I was really surprised that it actually turned out as great as it did between the number of entries and all the variety between them. Yeah, I don't think we've ever had a contest this good before.
The variety is what I took away from it the most, because these are all different people working on completely different things on their own. And everyone came up with a different final boss. Most of them had different ideas incorporated within them. And that was really neat to see how that came about. Because I kind of expected there to be 5 or more hacks, but there was still more than I thought there would be. But I kind of felt these would all have a similar feel to like rehashing each other, whatever. There might be 1 or 2 that stand out from the rest. And that wasn't the case. They all felt pretty different. And so that was really neat to see. That made for a fun contest.
Yeah, and I think it was nice to see the newcomers getting stuck in as well.
And actually doing pretty well.
The newer people made surprisingly good hacks.
Yep.
Like in the past, you usually see...
They're way better than what I was doing.
Especially for folks who have only been here like for a couple months.
Yeah, I think Vismond in particular.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
He had
He's going
really
places.
excellent use of vanilla tiling.
So I guess here's a quick question for you. Do you think that a contest is a good place for people to start out with their first hack?
I think it could be, because it gives people an idea of what to do with their hack a lot of times. Like sometimes you might not have a good idea and things end up being thrown together. It might not flow quite as nicely, or you might not get as many ideas for creative elements. But the contest kind of structures that so that you get more expertise for hacks in the future. So it's a good place to pick up, I think.
And to add on to that, it's a good place to test out some ideas that you might be playing around with and see how the public might like them or dislike them.
I think as well for the newcomers getting involved in the competition is that with people looking at competition entries, they're generally a bit more forgiving because people are trying new ideas. So when the newcomers come along and they put a hack out, everyone doesn't just go, oh, it's not amazing tiling usage, it's not multiple layering and everything else.
And I think people would generally be a little more forgiving for certain kinds of flaws in a contest environment because of the limited time frame, which is not always a bad thing, because you'd think it would normally allow for better critiques.
It just means that if players experience one small graphical glitch, they're not going to come in and condemn your hack to the burning hells.
I do think it's a good place to start. And like with new ideas, like Crash said too, that's also, I did like seeing that with a couple of the hacks. Was here's an idea, I've worked on it, it's working here, let's see what the feedback on it is. And then we'll just build a hack around that, let players fiddle around while experiencing this item I made.
Sort of a demo hack for X item.
Yeah, it would have been too easy to just have, one room with the new item here, play around, and then touch this enemy, and finish the hack.
And it actually gives kind of a more expansive testing environment for that new item.
And it might, they give the person with the new items more ideas on how it could be used. So they might try something, or they might think something's like a bad idea, but they want to put it in just to see what the reaction to it is.
Good place to come in, good place to test new ideas, all in all. It's a good place to start.
I think that pretty much covers up for the follow-up to the contest here, so I want to thank everybody for watching / listening, and for everyone joining.
See you next mission.